Hi, everyone. Can you just affirm for me that you're able to hear me fine? Okay, good. Thank you. All right. Why don't you tell me where you're all from before we start? And yeah, what part of the country, what part of the world you're from? That would be great. Okay, Arizona. Betty from Venezuela living in Canada. Istanbul, Turkey. Good to have you here. New Mexico, Vancouver. Oh, that's great. Idaho, Ohio, North Carolina, Uruguay, but currently in Ohio. Oh, good for you. London, Philippines. Hey, that's great. I think it's a 12-hour difference, isn't it? So it's 2 a.m. Well, thank you. Germany, hey, great to have you here. Atlanta and Wisconsin, hey, that's really great. That's super. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Okay. Raised in Far Rockaway, Queens, but you're in Cleveland. Okay. Um, it's wonderful, everybody. Thank you. So good to have you all here. And so you're going to notice, as we begin, there's a place to send questions and answers. It's a chat function, I believe, in the bottom of your screen where it says chat. And you can write a question, right? Where some of you are writing right now, tell me where you're from, Florida, wherever. Louisiana. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to speak for about 20 to 25 minutes. I'm going to give an overview of emotionally healthy spirituality as a discipleship that deeply changes lives. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to take questions and answers. And really, historically, what's happened is the question and answer time is phenomenal. It's our best time because people have so many questions. And there are so many questions around it. I want to provoke you and answer them as best I can. And so that's always the most lively time, that last half hour. So, all right. So again, welcome everyone. Great to have you here. My name is Pete Scazzaro, and our topic is emotionally healthy spirituality, a discipleship that deeply changes lives. And my goal here is to give an overview and introduction to it. You will receive, just so you know, you will receive in the next couple of days a free Zoom, this video with the PowerPoints on it. So, you want to take a couple notes, that's fine, but don't worry about it. You will get a copy of this if you want to share it with people afterwards. Okay. So let's pray as we commit our time to Jesus. So thank you, Lord. Thank you for the gift of technology that we can be together from around the world in one spot here on the third floor of our little home here in Queens, New York City. And we can communicate as if we're in the same room. So we bless you. We offer you our time. Guide us in Jesus' name for the glory of the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen. All right. So let me begin with a little bit of my story and how I got into this. I became a Christian at the age of 19, had a tremendous conversion by the grace of God, and began to get in scripture, be in fellowship. I was a university student, so I was involved in a Christian fellowship, grew rapidly, eventually graduated college, taught high school English for a year, and then went on staff with InterVarsity Christian Fellowship, which exists around the world. It's a ministry. My role was planting Christian fellowships on university campuses. Did that for 3 years, and then after that, graduated, went to seminary, and felt God's call to come back to New York City. But first, we spent a year learning Spanish in Central America. So we came back to New York City, and in September 1987, we planted a church, and that church is called New Life Fellowship Church. And I was a zealous Christian leader, to say the least. And but what happened was it became clear that leadership was not what I was expecting. The yoke was hard and heavy, not easy, and I found myself, oh God, get me out of this thing. And so I was winning the world, losing my soul, I like to say. But by year 5 or 6, as the church was growing, it became clear that people were changing, but not changing deeply. Now, if you've read anything on emotionally healthy spirituality, you've probably seen this iceberg image. And that is that it's a nice image of thinking about discipleship, that 1/10 of an iceberg is above the surface, 9/10 is below the surface. And when we think about discipleship, we're concerned about the whole person and all of their life. And so I was aware as we were, in the early years of our church plant, that people were not changing deeply. It seemed like we were recycling some of the same old problems, and that whenever there was stress and conflict in particular, people were to revert back to being emotional infants, even though they were chronologically much older. And so I began to just work really hard at how do we, make disciples that are deeply changed by God. And I was trying everything I knew in terms of, discipleship, more scripture, more fellowship, spiritual warfare, you name it. Worship nights, early morning prayer, all of which are good and important, but something we still were not getting at a chunk of that iceberg. And then on a personal level, my own life wasn't going well. Jerry felt like a single mom. I began to found myself very angry. We had one of our we were planting churches very fast at that point, and one of our congregations had a split in Spanish, and I found myself very angry, depressed, and didn't have a real theology for that. And then I was tired and losing my joy. I felt really, like to say, I felt like a soldier, not a son, joyfully delighting in the Father. So what happened was in 1994, I started this kind of inward journey of saying something's wrong in my iceberg that maybe God wants to get a hold of, because I was really at a wall. And then so I was on a 2-year inner journey. And then in 1996, January 2nd, actually, Jerry came to me. And if you know anything about my wife, Jerry, or read her book, The Emotionally Healthy Woman, she quits on me. She quits the church, which drives us into a crisis, but a crisis out of which God meets us in a way that was just miraculous. And I realized I was an emotional infant leading a church. And this revelation came to me that I was trying to raise up mothers and fathers of the faith, but my own, I myself was a spiritual baby, emotional baby. And the link, finally, I saw it, that emotional health and spiritual maturity are inseparable, that it's not possible to be spiritually mature while remaining emotionally immature. That was, I call it a second conversion, because I realized that the criteria for biblical maturity is character, it's loving, it's humility, it's brokenness, it's approachability, it's love, 1 Corinthians 13. It's not gifts or anointing or power or knowledge of the Bible. Pharisees had lots of that. And it was a revolution for me, a conversion. And so it began this journey that we call today Emotionally Healthy Spirituality in 1996. And I actually was going to write it all down. And so I've been, again, this was a 2-year build-up to this of exploring a number of biblical themes. But that launched us on a journey, and I began to bring it into our church at New Life Fellowship. Lives began to be dramatically changed. And over the next 7 years, just began to work it out, didn't write anything, didn't speak on it. And in 2003, wrote The Emotionally Healthy Church, which was our first book about why emotional health and spiritual maturity are inseparable. But in 2003, when that book came out, actually, we took a sabbatical for 4 months to learn from monastic orders and about slowing down for Jesus. Because I realized while emotional health is tremendous, that people need to slow down their lives to be with Jesus. Because I'm a pastor. We're about equipping and making disciples, not just people having better lives. I want people to be passionate for Jesus and passionate for his mission in the world. But that requires people have a deep walk with him. And so we ended up on a sabbatical of 4 months and began to learn from people that most evangelicals or charismatics would ever go near, which was monks. We went to France, we went to around North America. We learned from Orthodox, Roman Catholic, Protestant evangelicals that had moved to a more contemplative life, a slow down life of God with prayer. And so Jerry and I spent these 4 months actually engaging in silence and solitude and rhythms and offices and Sabbath in a way that really transformed us. I mean, it really, we experienced a third conversion, we call it. And so we came back out of that and began to integrate that into New Life Fellowship. And we made a big shift. We slowed down our lives so that our being with God corresponded with our doing for God. And you'll notice those 2 circles there on the graphic. We realized that we had more activity going on for God than he asked us to. and more activity than our inner life with God could sustain. So we got those circles right. And it was the combination at that point of emotional health and a slow down spirituality that released something of enormous power. It was like a nuclear explosion, and not just in our personal lives, but in our church. And people were just, experiencing profound transformation. And so we eventually wrote that in a book called Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. And I didn't think anybody was going to buy it or be interested in it. It became quite an international bestseller because it touched the nerve in the church around the world. And then finally in 2007, as this journey progressed, the question came up of how do you integrate all this stuff into leadership in terms of hiring and firing and strategic planning and team building. And I call it a fourth conversion because I realized, wow, to bring this into your leadership life is another level. And I call it leading with integrity. And I really had a fourth conversion as I had to look at myself in a hard way. And we brought it and eventually culminated in the book with, I imagine some of you have read, that came out in 2015 called The Emotionally Healthy Leader. And basically takes all this discipleship stuff and applies it on a leadership level. So it's been a 21-year journey. Actually, in January, it'll be 22 years of emotionally healthy spirituality as a discipleship that deeply changes people. And so right now, 4.5 years ago, I stepped down from being the senior pastor at New Life Fellowship. I was the senior pastor 26 years. And I'm still on staff. I have a role on staff and part-time. And Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, we function as a ministry of New Life Fellowship to serve and bless the world. But it's been 21 years of developing, and we're still growing and learning about this discipleship of integration of what we call emotional healthy spirituality, which powerfully transforms people. And so let me step back. And so it's what these last 4.5 years has given us is time for Jerry and I in particular to step back and look at what's happening globally in the area of discipleship and begin to really address it very specifically. So let me just move to the issue of where the global church is today and then circle back to where EHS responds to it. The global church is in deep trouble. There was a study done about 2 years ago by Barna that was commissioned by the Navigators on the state of discipleship in the world. Or actually, this was North America. And they found that it's in a crisis, that only 1% of church leaders say churches are doing very well at discipling new and young believers. That means 99% said we're not doing well at discipling. And that participation in discipleship activities is low as 20% in our churches. And then the reason why is that people, they don't have a vision for discipleship, and there's just a lack of commitment. In fact, it could properly be said that there's almost like a two-tiered Christianity going on in the West. You've got, I accept Jesus and I'll decide if I'm going to be a disciple. Like I can be a Christian, but not be a disciple, which actually New Testament knows nothing of that. I'm a Christ follower. I received Jesus. I'm a Christian. I'm a disciple. But for a variety of reasons, that's now gotten separated. And so here's traditional discipleship that goes on in churches. We meet Jesus, we get people into our churches, and we get them connected into some kind of small group or ministry. We get them serving either inside or outside the church, and we want them giving of their time and their talents, their money, and we expect that they're going to grow. And then we make an impact in the world. And that's contemporary discipleship. I call it traditional discipleship. So what we're talking about here with EHS is transformative discipleship, which is people meet Jesus. Yes, they get involved in our local church communities, but then they are deeply changed, out of which we make a large impact in the world. Because what we're after is the glory of Christ filling the earth. But this is a different approach. It is like, no, you're coming to church and we're going to introduce you to being deeply changed by Jesus. And so what we've developed over these 21 years is two courses, the Emotionally Healthy Spirituality course and the Emotionally Healthy Relationships course. And again, this is discipleship. This is about formation. This is messy. This is not a program, although it's got a programmatic element. This is about life on life. This is about getting in there, getting your feet in a mess, but it develops and produces people transformed by Jesus, something beautiful by God's grace. And in some way, we can contrast that. What I'm talking about here with you in this webinar is a contrast of modern day discipleship, which is basically numbers, crowds, attendance, connecting, serving. And then hopefully people will go. But it's a trickle of going, it's a trickle of impact. And so it's just so interesting. We've got lots of mega churches actually around the world, but I'm just thinking the United States right now. In a place like New York City, we can have lots of churches with lots of numbers, but the culture continues to decline. Our influence continues to diminish over time. So what we're talking about here with emotionally healthy spirituality, or EHS for short, is a discipleship strategy that's slower and smaller. It's the Jesus in the 3, the 12, the 70, the 500. But here we are today, 2,000 years later, because of Jesus' discipleship strategy. So let me ask you, what discipleship strategies have you tried at your church over the years? And where are you today? So what I want to offer to you is the fruit of our 21 plus years of work and these 2 courses. The first course relates to loving God. The second, loving others. And 2 8-week courses. Actually, you could say it's 1 course, part A and part B. But it's a lot. It's a big answer to a big problem. And here's what it looks like. You've got on one side the spirituality course, spirituality course, which the focus is really loving God. And you've got a book, a daily office book, a workbook. It's a lot. And then on the other side, you've got the relationships course, and how do I love other people? And actually breaks down how do I teach people to love differently than their families of origin. It's a big answer to a big problem. And these are centralized courses, high quality, not small group curriculum. So I want to be clear on that. For many years, one of the courses, Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, actually both of these were used in small groups for years around the world. And but we found that the quality was mixed. The quality was not what we intended. First of all, small group leaders weren't trained. Secondly, that people would they would get rid of certain weeks. They wouldn't do the daily office. They would skip the hard parts. And so people say, oh, I did Emotionally Spirituality. I did that. Like, great book, but people's lives weren't being changed. And so over time, we moved to centralizing it with a trained leader and a high quality course. And the effect has been, radical. It has been, night and day. And so there you get an example of myself and leading it at our church. And you've got people at tables with a trained table leader. So here's some background on the EH discipleship courses. They've been refined over 21 years. We're in the early stages of embedding the discipleship courses in churches. As it's growing. And so we've just started to begin to follow who's doing the courses and follow them up. And so it's very early stages. In fact, the materials have just been updated and re-released just in the last few months, which we're very, very excited about, and put into a kit. But the core of the courses is equipping people to be with Jesus. I want to say that again. The core of both courses is to equip people to be with Jesus. One of the great elephants in the room in the church is that our people are not spending time with God. They're living off other people's spirituality. They're not spending time in Scripture. And if you really drill down and find out, like, what do you do to cultivate your relationship with Jesus, you find out that for most people, it's going to church, maybe going to a small group, but it's a very compartmentalized spirituality. It's a very immature spirituality, and they're really not going anywhere. They're stuck. But we're talking about learning to be with Jesus. Silence, solitude, loving union with Jesus, developing a rhythm of being with Jesus on a daily basis, listening, practicing his presence. And I like the term a first-hand spirituality, not a second-hand spirituality. And so in the courses, there are 2 what's called emotionally healthy day-by-day daily office devotionals. They look like this, and so people every day are spending time with Jesus, and part of the accountability in the course is how's it going, etc. And the material corresponds. The offices correspond with the course. So here's, for example, the Emotionally Healthy Spirituality course. You'll see a day-by-day book, a daily office book. There's the book, Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. There's a workbook, and there's actually a DVD, at least for the leader. And so everyone gets what's called a participants packet. And so it's a course. This is not like, oh, let's just come and hang out and have pizza. No, this is a serious discipleship course. Now, small groups are important. I love small groups. I believe in small groups. Our church has small groups. But small groups are fundamentally about connecting, pastoral care, and light discipleship. This is about equipping. This is about discipleship that deeply changes lives. So here's, for example, some of the topics in the spirituality course. Begins with looking at Saul, and the problem of emotionally unhealthy spirituality, where Saul was emotionally unaware and does not have a contemplative life with God like David. Then it looks at Joseph, know yourself that you may know God, and how it's critical that we know who we are, how God uniquely made us, and looks at David attacking Goliath, who knows he's a shepherd. But David knows God and knows himself, and God uses him powerfully. And how it's important to go forward in this biblical theme of Joseph in the Old Testament, and how we got to go back to our families of origin if we're going to go forward and break the unhealthy patterns to become the people God's called us to be and do what God's called us to do. And then it introduces people to journey through the wall, and how we hit walls, how we hit dark nights of the soul. But God uses that, and God intends that so that he can mature us and deeply change us. And looks at the story of Abraham sacrificing Isaac. And then the whole theme of grief and loss. Again, the Bible's got a whole book called Lamentations. 2/3 of the Psalms are losses and griefs. But yet we don't teach that in our churches. And so the big biblical theme, and it looks at Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane in that study. And then it introduces people to discover the daily office and Sabbath, this idea of rhythms in their lives, growing into an emotionally mature adult, and how you can't separate loving God and loving people. And then this whole idea of developing a rule of life, where how do I have God at the center of my life? Now, this is an introduction to loving God, or again, a discipleship that deeply changes lives. Each one of these 8 weeks could have been its own 8-week course. We put it, however, in one course to introduce people to a paradigm or a framework for the rest of their lives. And the second course is about relationships. And again, you'll see it's a workbook and a day-by-day book. And this is a DVD there for the leaders. And again, so there's 8 skills here. And I'll just, I don't want to go through them all right now. But so, for example, we say in the new family of Jesus, we don't relate the way our families of origin did it. We're in the new family of Jesus, so we're learning to relate the way Jesus calls us to in terms of loving. So we found that over these last 21 years that people need skills to apply the Bible. And so things like, for example, fight cleanly. You'll see that at the bottom there. And most people fight dirty. We learned passive aggressive behavior, silent treatment, sarcasm, yelling, hitting in some cases. But in the new family of Jesus, we don't do that. We fight cleanly. And so we teach 8 skills to help people redo how they do all their relationships, not just church, but family and marriage and parenting and singleness. And they bring it to the workplace by God's grace. So again, it's 2 big courses, loving God and loving other people, to bring into a church setting or ministry setting to really offer a discipleship that deeply changes people and giving them a framework to really go forward. So again, here it is. Here's the course, and I want you to see the breadth of it, because this isn't plug and play. So, and actually, just this past month, Zondervan put it into a kit. It's called the Emotionally Healthy Discipleship Courses Leaders Kit, and so you get it in one. You get it, just buy it in one shot, and it's fantastic. And so if you don't have these courses, I want to encourage you to pick it up, and then begin to look through it all the materials, because it's just beautiful. And actually buy it from us, because our profits go back to support the ministry, which is a very good thing, and our prices are great. And I think it's $89.99, and but I would get that. It's a tremendous course. And so actually at the end of each course, at the end of the books as well, those checklists, so people can check off, oh yeah, I finished this, and at the end of which we send them a certificate of completion if they tell us on the website, which is great. and we give them a certificate of completion, which, many people just love it that they completed the course. Doesn't mean they're mature, but it means they completed the courses, which is great. So here's the best results of the EH discipleship courses. Number one is transform lives. Number two is people's personal relationship with Jesus is deepened. Three is future leaders and servants are developed. Four is a broad paradigm of discipleship is laid for the future that you end up building on. Healthy community is formed because you're really, the love and quality of the relationships in the church is intended by Jesus to be radically different than what's out in the world. And this makes that a possibility, which is wonderful. And of course, there's greater impact in the world for the gospel in terms of evangelism, because you can't, we're committed to mission, but it's got to flow out of people filled with Jesus. You can't help but share what God's doing in your life when you're being transformed. And that's why for Jesus, mission and discipleship were inseparable. Leadership development and discipleship were inseparable. And my whole life has been developing leaders, but I ended up going back to discipleship because you can't have leaders are basically great disciples who are leading. And so I found we have many folks in leadership who have not had a great foundation of discipleship. And so that's why over the years we ended up back to this place. But here's the reality check. This is not a quick fix, and it's hard work. And I just think of Paul saying, I'm in the pains of childbirth until Christ is formed in you, Galatians 4:19. And so what our ministry is, what we do is we provide on our website, emotionallyhealthy.org, all kinds of support and free resources to help you bring these courses to your church. Everything from scheduling of how do you do this, and because this is not it's not a small group material, it's a course, and how do you form a team to bring it in, etc. So everything's from like job descriptions for the point leader and small group table leader, administrator, schedules. We actually provide coaching as well. Booklets. How do you run these courses in your church? And there's free booklets that you'll find is actually in the DVDs. When you purchase that, you'll see a little booklet on how do you prepare and plan and promote and train and run the course. And if you're familiar with Alpha, which Alpha is for evangelism, Emotional and Healthy Spirituality is for discipleship. Just think of it in that case. Alpha, we do Alpha at our church. It's a great way to keep evangelism central. And we do Emotional Spirituality to keep discipleship at the core of everything that we do. And so we actually have a network that all the point leaders, we actually do phone calls, and we have again, we provide support to help you lead the courses. And actually people sign up on a map on our website that they're doing the courses, and we support them. And it looks something like this around the world. And at least every one in North America, we follow through on. So yeah, keep sending your questions. And what I'll do is I'll start answering them in just a few minutes. So what do you do next here as I bring this to a close? We are running live stream training events every month, 1 to 4 p.m. Eastern time. And we ask you to get at least 3 people in a room. You could have 25 people in a room, but at least 3. And because in that training, we talk about how do you actually run the course in your church. But we have to train the point leaders to do a great job. So, you want to come to that. And so our next one actually is January 30th. We just did one 2 days ago. We're not doing one in December. Obviously, it's Christmas, but the next one will be January 30th, and it'll be on the relationships course. We take turns between the relationships course and the spirituality course with these live stream events. And you want to note that. And so here's an example of the next 4 that are coming up. January, February, March, and then May, because we have a conference. But let me encourage you to come to that live stream training event in January. So what happens at these events? One is you'll learn 7 best practices to a great course. You'll learn about, the reason we want 3 of you in a room is because I lead a session, and you actually are going to form a table group, even though we're doing it live streaming. And so you can feel what it's like to be in the course. It's very different than a small group, and it's very different than a Sunday school class. And then we'll teach you how to train small group table leaders as well, because they're the key to the course, the quality of those tables. And then we'll talk about how do you lead people into silence and stillness, because one of the big things of these courses is moving people from an immature relationship with God, which is talk, where there's a balance of being able to be still and silent before the Lord, where it's a real two-way relationship. And so part of what the point leader does is leading people into silence and stillness. And so we like to say, you begin this by doing you're exploring it right now. You're checking it out. You'll hopefully come to a training event. And then we'll encourage you, pilot the course, give it a shot. And but our goal is that you'll continue it and hopefully give it away to other people. But we're inviting you to a pilot. And our vision and our prayer and hope is that you'll do what we did here at New Life Fellowship, which is, and many other churches are doing around the world, which is, obviously being with Jesus is the core to all of discipleship. But the two courses form like the trunk of a tree. And they form a trunk of a tree where they inform everything else done in discipleship in the church, everything from stewardship to small groups, because it gives you a robust theology, a robust way of looking at following Jesus. And it's something you're basically, when you do the courses, you build on it and everything else you're doing. So maybe, for example, anything as simple as integrating skills into all the small groups that are done in a relationship course. Or when you're doing a course on stewardship or money, you're going to ask a new set of questions like, how'd your family of origin do money? And things like a genogram. So again, this is a slow, small burn. Jesus said this kingdom of God's like a mustard seed. It's small. Discipleship is a mustard seed. It's slow and small. But if we'll be faithful in doing it, God will develop disciples. I mean, we start with this, we end up with this, which is amazing. And but again, for the Western church, which wants everything quick and fast and now, it's hard to embrace small, imperceptible, almost invisible, messy seed so that we can have this long term. So again, let me invite you to go on our website and pick up the Discipleship Courses Leaders Kit. If you don't have either one of the courses right now, because it's a great, you can buy them each separately, of course, but to get them in a kit is just very nice, and you got some instructions there and all that. And I'd go to our website to do that. So, okay, so let's do this. Let me encourage you. We've got a Q&A function there in the chat where some have already started sending questions, and I want to encourage you to begin sending questions. I got questions already, and then what I'll do is I'll begin to answer them. Okay, so let's okay, let's take it from the top here. All right. I got all the books except the DVD on relationships. Do I have to purchase a kit to attend the course? No. Okay, is there a discount? So no. Yvette from Tennessee, you do. If you've got the books for the relationship course, you do need the DVD. So I would just buy the DVD, and then you're all set. And then you want to come to the live stream with that, and I would probably get it for the people in your others who are going to be with you. So do we have a discount for those who bought the books before the course came out? No, I think it's the same price anyway. It's all the same. So again, you just want to pick up that DV. To what extent, in your opinion, is part of the problem in the evangelical Protestant movement is that we have an inadequate view of what it means to be human, created in the image of God and broken by sin. And thus, in our zeal to reach the world, we are more defined by mission and activism to a fault, and we've ignored the life of the soul. So, okay, let me try to answer that well. Part of your message is being covered here. Okay, here it is. Yes. Okay, Tom. So, absolutely. In fact, I did a lot of work on this when I first got into this in 1996. I wanted to know how, as evangelicals, I ended up here. And I went back to my professors in seminaries and scholars and say, how did this happen? And I had one professor that was the world scholar on Augustine of Hippo, 5th century, one of the greatest theologians. And he said to me, and I remember him saying to us in class that evangelicals were Neoplatonists, and that their view of a human being was, the body is bad and the spirit is good. And I remember spending time with some Hebrew scholars and talking about, when we talk about being made in the image of God, that is a huge issue. What does it mean to be made in the image of God? There's different aspects of that image. And sometimes we've got this over-realized spirituality, or eschatology it's called, that we're like angels in heaven, and we don't embrace our humanity, that we're physical beings, we're emotional beings, we're human beings with spiritual components to us and intellectual components to us, relational components, and that all of that has to be addressed in discipleship. So great question. Live stream, couple of questions here at live stream training. How do we register for the live stream training? You go on our website to register. Is there a cost? Yes. If you buy the cost is $49 for you to have access to it. You can have 25 people in the room if you like, but it's $49. If you buy the kit from us, the Emotionally Healthy Discipleship kit from our website, you actually get to go for free, which is great. Let me try to get. Someone asked me. They're asking me for the dates here again. Here they are. Here's the dates. Here's the dates for the live stream, and you want to pick one. So here's Tony. Here's the dates back up there. Okay. Is there a way to integrate the course with Sunday sermons? And it's a really good question, Greg. Absolutely. I mean, actually, when you buy the, I think it's a spirituality course, you actually receive sermons that I did many years ago that go with the different themes. So yes, you can, but the point of the courses is you just don't do them once. The goal is, because it's high quality courses, again, it's got to be centralized. And so the goal is that you're offering it 2 to 3 times a year, each course. So we do three times a year, course you do in September, January, and after Easter. And so we alternate spirituality course, relationships course, spirituality course, relationships course. And actually now we're going to start offering 2 at once as well in our church. And we're about 1,500 adults. And so you can preach it through. The key is you don't want people to get a sense of, oh, we went through it once and we're finished. The material is great preaching material. If you go on our website, I've got a whole 500-600 free sermons on there, sermon series ideas. There's so much great preaching material around the emotionally healthy spirituality material, but that's not what I'm after. We're after changing the way the church does discipleship. And that's the goal, because that's the only way we're going to impact the world for Jesus long term in a sustainable way. It's the only way we're going to have leaders for the next generation as well. Okay, questions here about the Emotionally Healthy Discipleship Summit in April. How does it fit into all this? Yes, we're having a summit April 25 and 26. In fact, I meant to put it up on a PowerPoint slide. Sorry about that. And that summit is for churches that are doing the courses. So in other words, if you're going to do the course in January, February, or in April, May, you want to come to that summit. We're gathering globally all those in this movement called Emotionally Healthy Spirituality Discipleship. And it's in depth. It's like beyond the live stream. It is like theological foundation. We're bringing in, we have best practice from around the world. It's going to be 2 days of really our tribe. We used to have a conference that was open to everybody in the whole world, people coming for all kinds of reasons. This one is, we're asking people come to this conference are with churches or ministries that are doing the courses or planning to do the courses. We don't want you coming if you're like, oh, I want to find out about the courses. No. You find out about online stuff. Do the courses. The materials are out here. Our goal here is the best practices. We're not looking for tens of thousands of churches to do the courses right now. We're looking for the few to do it really well as this thing is expanding out. There's right now 294 churches doing the courses just in the United States. I think that includes some in Canada as well. And we're really in some ways just starting. So we know there'll be many more. Our concern is getting the quality down with those of you who are on the phone on this live stream with me right now who do the courses. So you want to come to that summit. Absolutely. Okay. 13 years ago, an emotionally ill member killed the pastor, her mother, and herself in the main sanctuary before church. Membership has plummeted. Nobody wants to discuss what happened, how it impacted them personally. The church is still grieving. churches to some effective family members still attend church. What do you suggest for approaching this? Paula, it's a great question. It's really important that you probably need someone to help just the whole body of church with this and to get a good theology of grieving, which is found in each of the Emotionally Church book and spirituality book. But I would talk about it head on, what happened. It's part of your history. It's part of your genogram. But God wants to bring something good and beautiful out of it. And that's the biblical understanding of grieving. I pay attention to it. I wait on God in it. And then I let God birth something new out of it. And so I would encourage you to get that biblical theology. I'd look especially at the Emotionally Healthy Church book on that. And I would bring it on. So from there. Okay, next. Let me go to here. Hold on. Vic, lots of crackling. How is my voice? I hope, it's still, I'm really sorry about that. Crackling, not sure what to do about that. Okay, is there follow-up for people who've completed the courses? Yes. There is. The follow-up for people who've completed the courses is, that's where your church got to think about the larger issues of discipleship. Now, I'm assuming you've got small groups that are meeting, of course. So we have, for example, 7 courses that we offer people in our church that build on the spirituality courses. Again, our church is a larger church now, and so it's a little bit easier. It's when you're small, it's more difficult. But that's a whole nother issue. We're just trying to get people started in these courses. Many people take the courses more than once because you can't get it the first time, and they become small group table leaders, and go the next step. Where do I get the books? You want to go to our website under store. Now, of course, you can buy the books anywhere. The books are sold. But we want to encourage you to buy from us at Emotionally Spirituality because the profits go back to support the global ministry. But all of it's sold at a great bulk discount from us at Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. I'm a licensed therapist and deeply interested in how to figure out how to use this. Is it appropriate to run these courses through a nonprofit counseling ministry? Absolutely. I know ministries that run the courses for their regions. Many therapists use the theology, of course, and they give out the books, and they use the skills, the 8 skills, with clients. I've got a good friend who's always doing skills with the clients. I feel like he should be sending me a check, which is great. But we want to encourage you, if you're able to, as a nonprofit, to offer the course. And then, your therapy then would supplement it. That's always great to do. I purchased the kit when the introductory course was offered, and the offer said the purchase included a free training. How do I register for that? Is there a confirmation code to register? Yes, there is. And you should have received that. If you haven't, Lisa, go to info@emotionallyhealthy.org, and they'll get that for you. But yeah, when you buy the kit, there should be a code that you get with it that will then help you get the free training. Where is the summit? The summit will be held in New York City at New Life Fellowship Church. We're talking about a deep paradigm shift and church habits. How have you seen the change of habits take root in churches that have adopted this? Information alone doesn't change habits. Excellent question, Tom. We have a saying that says this: as goes the leader, so goes the church. And so it is true. This is not a program. This is life. And so we want the leaders to live it. So the point leader beginning with it first. That's why doing it once is not enough. It takes time. So for example, we've been doing the course 5 years at our church, 6 years. The quality of our course is extremely high because the table leaders, as well as the whole church, is living it out on a level we were not living it out when we first started. And but we have seen churches dramatically changed around the world. In fact, I would encourage you on the front page of our website, you will see on the bottom some videos of lives transformed by the EH Spirituality course, the EH Relationships course, Silence and Stillness. Watch that. But you're dead right. It's not information that changes people. God changes people. But it's out of our own transformation, people are changed. Now, here's the unique power of the 2 courses. Again, we spent 21 years working on this. And most evangelical discipleship curriculums are intellectual content. It's information. What we've done is we have obviously information, but we've created an environment at these tables in small groups where people experience the material, have to work it through. It's experiential learning, not simply intellectual learning. And we found people need to do the Bible, not just not just hear about what they need to do. And that has been made all the difference. And you'll see that as you get into it. Again, we developed this over time, over a small period of time. So what are the character traits for table leaders, qualities? What kind of people do you look for in your church? Now, initially, I would say you want to start with some people who've got some level of maturity because you're doing it for the first time. But there's a training for table leaders. So again, when you come to the live stream training, you'll be taught, how do I train the table leaders? And so we actually have on our website all this material to help you run a great course. One of the most important is, how do you train these table leaders? So for example, there's a video for that with an outline and from some discussion questions, but you're going to get help on how to do that. We're not just sending you out there. And but you're looking for people, the more they're in the course, the better. I was talking with a large church just last week, and they're launching the course with 90 table leaders, if you could imagine. And so all the table leaders are, now in it, and they're hopefully doing the DVD and going through it, the workbook and the day-by-day book, and which is fabulous. And as they're going to launch it for the first time. But I want to repeat, the first time you do the course, it's a pilot. And in fact, I would say the first 2 times you do both courses, it's a pilot, because it does take a while to get it. We like to encourage churches, start small and build. So you may, again, depending on the size of your church, and you build from that. Okay, there's a couple of questions here. One's about Spanish. Is it in Spanish? The spirituality course is in Spanish. The relationships course is not yet in Spanish. So again, you can do the spirituality course, but not the other one yet. But it will be coming. What about church plants? What do I do if I'm a church planter? We would encourage you to build emotionally healthy discipleship as one of your values into your DNA. And so what many church plants are doing is they basically build it into a value, is that everyone, as they're coming into this church plant, understand that these 2 courses are how we do community, how we do life together, how we do following Jesus. And it will save you so much pain and agony. I can't tell you. So I say there's a great movement of this among church plants, and for good reason. What are the common practices for the course? Meet once a week in the evening. How many weeks? And do people watch the DVD, or does the leader teach the course? Okay, you got a lot of questions there, Jen Lee. All right, number 1 is yes. Either you meet once. It's like at our church, we do every Wednesday night for 8 weeks, and we do from 7 to 9 o'clock in the evening. Some churches do Sunday afternoons. In fact, we're doing a Sunday afternoon class after Easter, and they alternate. Some I know are doing the mornings. Some do during the day. I know there's a women's ministry doing it out in California, and they're going to be doing it both in the evening and also in the morning to catch all the folks. So it's 8. Each course is 8 weeks. And yes, there is in the beginning, you need to use the DVDs because you don't know the course yourself. We say that once you as a leader have mastered the material, when you can hit a home run with the material, then you teach it. The relationships course is much more difficult to teach because you have to really master the skills. And again, there's different levels of knowing the material. And if to teach it, you got to really know it. And so you want to use the DVDs in the beginning. Solitude and silence with God might be one of the most foreign concepts in the modern pace of life. Are there common things that leaders currently do that you think are counterproductive towards making healthy disciples? Well, Peter, the first thing is we as leaders are out of control ourselves, and we're not quiet and still before the Lord. So that's the biggest counterproductive thing. So part of what needs to happen, obviously, is that we as leaders begin to live it. So you want to begin again to get into it yourself as you bring it to others. But again, I want to say it again: stillness. Each of the daily offices, in the day-by-day books, begins with 2 minutes of silence. And that is the most difficult part of the course. And so on our website, again, you're going to find all these materials and, all these materials of how do I lead people in a daily office? How do I hold the silence in a room? So the great thing is you as a leader, you're going to learn a tremendous amount leading it as a point leader. You'll grow the most. And I teach the course at New Life because I'm not the lead pastor anymore, but I benefit every time I do it. Another question here is if your church is over 100 people or 150 people, you may do the course once yourself, but you're not going to be able to sustain it long term because it just requires a lot. So you're going to want to have someone else do it. A associate pastor, a key leader you've got in your church that can do it. That's key. Does it matter which course you do first? No, it does not matter which course you begin with, the spirituality course or the relationships course. No, it doesn't matter. I know some folks like to begin with the spirituality course, but our experience is that the relationships course is such a draw to people because people are in so much relational pain at work and families and marriages and singles. I'm amazed. We have 200 people in our course right now at our church. And we got 25 tables. And I would say the average age is probably between 25 and 30 because young people are just relationally struggling. And you're going to find young people are really drawn to this material. In a smaller church of around 100 people, how would you suggest we introduce these courses? Does the relationship course follow on from the spirituality course? If we ran one of the courses a year, would we lose momentum? I may not be able to get three people to attend the training sessions. Does that preclude attending? No, I mean, do what you can do, right? But see who you can find, Dave. Maybe just grab a couple and bring them in so you can form a group. But I would try to get minimally one other person with you, but try to get 3. See what you can do. It does not preclude you from coming. If you've got 100 people, I would actually encourage you to do it twice, each course once a year. And because, again, you're not going to get everybody in, first of all. And say you have 30 people or 25 people each time, you're going to find that you need to run it again. So I would probably suggest you do it twice a year. And if I was going to start, because once you start, you're going to be alternating. So people are going to be coming in at whatever point. I would probably start, in your case, with the spirituality course. And then I would do the relationships course because the spirituality course in some ways really provides the large paradigm. But we're finding that for people, it doesn't really matter that much, either way you go. But the spirituality course, I probably would start with that. How does the EHS church book enhance the other two? I would say that in particular, the Emotionally Healthy Leader book is the Emotionally Church book and Leader book are written to pastors and leaders. So I want to be clear that the audience is elders, staff. That's the Emotionally Healthy Leader book. That's the one you want to read on that. It's the most recent. The church book also lays out a great paradigm of discipleship. But so we're talking about 2 different applications there. Do you have a genogram software or do you prefer you do it naturally by hand? Okay, Sharon, so it's a really good question. The genogram is one of the most powerful parts of the courses. And there is genogram software. No, we actually prefer they do it by hand because you're doing an introduction to the genogram. Again, like everything else, the genogram has different levels to it. And so in the courses, you're doing it by hand, and it's an introduction to it. I was in a doctoral program. We spent 1 year on our genogram interviewing every living member of our family and how it impacted us in our discipleship. So again, genograms have all different levels. In these courses, we're introducing it, which is enough of a shock for people. Which actually, Mark, your question builds on that, which is the one-on-one stuff. We use all the material in these courses is tremendous one-on-one discipling material after the courses. So, for example, let's take the genogram, where people build a genogram of their family going back 3 to 4 generations. Well, we sit down with every leader, and we go through their genogram for 2 hours. And taking them through the material and really taking them in depth to it. Okay, I got a lot of questions here, everybody. Have you had experience with some need to move from group setting to one-on-one counseling? Absolutely. Sometimes, Mark, people need to go into counseling therapy. We refer them out. Again, this is about discipleship and equipping. We're not therapists. We're not spiritual directors. We are doing discipleship. So I want to be really clear on the boundaries of what these discipleship courses is and what we're doing as a local church. We are not doing therapy. We're not doing counselors. There are professionals trained to that, and we refer them out as needed, as they want. Okay, and that works out great. Okay, I got nine other questions here in our last 5 minutes. How would you approach the age gap within the church? The younger generation wants discipleship, but the older generation, who make up staff, clergy, elders, seem to not have the heart, knowledge, or passion for it for many different reasons, tradition, etc. I ask because I offer myself first and foremost to that end. Thanks for your work, Jennifer, blah, blah, blah. I say the age gap within a church, again, I think it's more of an interest gap. Remember the parable of the four soils? 3 of the 4 soils inside the church, and Matthew's version of the sower and the soils is these 4 soils are all in the church, but only one soil is really good soil. And I think we make an invitation. We give people a vision for discipleship, but we recognize, not everyone's got that kind of hunger. But we found that we've got to cast a much clearer vision. We got to encourage churches to say, no, to be a Christian is to be a disciple. Like what Bonhoeffer said, Christianity without discipleship is a Christianity without Christ. And to be a Christian is to be a disciple. This is your life. You spend $50,000 going to the university or in your vocation, your job. But how much have you invested in being a Christ follower? What's more important than that? And so once as we started to cast a vision of what's normal Christianity, we find that people respond. Again, everyone's at different places. We invite, we don't inflict. I just ordered the discipleship kit from your website. Do you wish to mention the wonderful free offer? Yes. So here's Annette. Thank you. So if you order this kit from our website, you will be given right now, and you'll be able to come to our live stream training for free for both courses. So you want to get that leader's kit from us, all right? And again, it supports the ministry. But you're getting a $99 value of you can come to training sessions for both the spirituality course and the relationships course. So yes, go to shop on our website and get that. How much is the kit? $99. We're an ethnic church and do have some cultural factors to work through with the EH material. Can we teach the 8 topics in a slightly different sequence in order to fit our college, our church and students? Annette, I love you, although I don't know you, all right? But let me say to you, our church has 73 to 75 nations in it. And this material was developed in an international context. And all the sessions have been carefully pruned and contextualized so that it fits Indonesia or Europe or Latin America or African Americans or Middle America or you name it. So, but the topics are actually in a sequence that's very purposeful and it fits together. In other words, we didn't just throw them together. They actually, as you get into it, Annette, and do the course, especially if you do it a couple of times, you will realize it does fit together. And one example would be in the relationships course. I've had pastors say to me, no, I just want to go, Pete, I just want to do clean fighting because we have a lot of conflict in our church. And I say, no, you don't understand. That's the 8th skill. It builds on the other 7. You can't just jump into clean fighting. You got to learn, how do I speak clearly, respectfully, honestly, and in a timely fashion? How do I listen? How do I get a hold of my values? How do I make a complaint with a request for change? And how do I do appreciations? In other words, there's a lot that goes around that. And so you want to make sure that you go in order. And the same thing with the spirituality course. It's a very thoughtful order of the course. So Annette, I would please encourage you, do the courses as they're laid out. You will find it will make sense. Do you recommend teaching both courses in 1 year? Absolutely. Do one course a year to have it go deeper? No. Listen, let me say it again. These 2 courses are an introduction to a discipleship that deeply changes lives. What we're trying to do is move your church into a framework that has depth to it. You're going to build on it, but we offer it repeatedly. So you're going to offer other classes. So for example, like we have a marriage retreat coming up this weekend at New Life Fellowship Church. And so we are taking the skill of incarnational listening, one of the skills, and going deep into it in a way beyond the course, if that makes any sense. Genogram, okay, we've had a whole, half a day seminars on a genogram. So in other words, you may take it and build into it in other places, but the courses in and of themselves are meant to be an introduction to a discipleship that deeply changes lives. If you get stuck and spend all your time on one or two, and you say, I'm going to take 6 weeks on this session, you're going to find it will die in your church. Again, this came out of lots of realizing that we want this to stay in churches long term. I'd like to start this course in my church in Poland, but I need to first translate the materials. Where should I start? How do we get the EHS course in Poland? Let me encourage you to talk to a publisher in Poland and have them contact HarperCollins to get the materials translated. And if you're really serious about bringing it in Poland, you probably want to come to our summit. We're gathering globally people from around the world in April to our Emotionally Healthy Discipleship Summit here in New York. And so you can connect with other Europeans and others from around the world in that. How much revisions has been done to the recent discipleship courses from the original version? 90% of the same content, more visual aids. So is it better to use the newly released version? Yes, absolutely. So just, the Emotionally Healthy Spirituality course was revised. It's, again, the same material. So things like, I'll give examples. Where's the material? So let's say, for example, the DVD, there's a closing video that goes with it. It's not just the introduction, there's a summary, closing summary. The workbook has been updated. It's much easier to use. The book has been tightened so it all goes together. So you definitely want to use the revised version. The Emotional Relationships course, we had just self-published that. And it was the 2010 version. This version that just came out is, my wife would say, 75% better. It's the same skills, but it's way more improved and way more improved. So you definitely want to use the new stuff here. When you have a small church with not many leaders, what's your recommendation? I would encourage you, Ray, to, if you have a midweek service, I would encourage you to begin with do the courses. You're the leader. You're the pastor. You are the leader in that small church. You're the point leader. And I would offer it, obviously, I would still do it once a year to build it into your church culture. Culture is really important to change a church. Okay, and 2 more questions. I'll close. Can we teach? No, different order. I got the different order question. Yes, follow our order. Okay, is the summit going to be live streamed for those of us not in the U.S.? No, we're not planning to live stream the course right now. It's not in the plans. How is the summit compared to the former Leaders Conference? It's going to be completely different because the goal of the conference, and you go on our website and read about it, the goal of our conference is to equip churches that are doing the courses into a level of doing the courses of very high quality and taking them to a place, because you're going to realize there are levels of doing these courses. So they are really powerfully changing people's lives. And there's so many best practices that even in a 3-hour live stream, I can't even begin to go into. And so I'm going to give an example. Like we just released, if you're not in our an ebook on Church History Matters to a Discipleship that Deeply Changes Lives. It's a free ebook. You can go on our website and find it and download it. And but why is it we learn from church history? Like that's very important. We'll talk about the gospel, how the gospel informs every aspect of emotional discipleship courses. We'll talk about things like how every culture has to be, we were in Switzerland recently, and how Switzerland, say Germany, say Poland, say Ecuador, that emotional discipleship is going very specifically in how the gospel intersects with cultural and racial and ethnic messages that are deep in our bones. We like to say Jesus is in your heart, but grandpa's in your bones. We are going after discipleship that deeply changes lives and people's bones. So, okay. Last question here is, can we interject a Saturday retreat in the middle of the course? Absolutely. you can do that. You can do all kinds of things. So, all right, everybody, listen, it has been so great to be with you. We so appreciate you. You'll be getting a video of this in a couple of days from us. Feel free to share it with others. It has been a blessing to be with you. May the Lord's hand rest upon you in the name of Jesus. And you have a wonderful day. God bless you. Take care, everybody. If you want to send any questions, Andrew, you raise your hand. Let me see if I can raise it. God bless you, everybody. And Andrew, you raise your hand, but I'm not sure how to respond to your raising the hand. So email me your question or text, do it in the chat. Send me your question, and I'll try to answer it. God bless everybody. Have a great day. Good to be with you. Take care.